Alright, so we are halfway through 2024, and while I've made some dedicated videos talking about some of the games I've played so far, there are tons of games that I've played that I haven't actually talked about, and I most likely won't be making a full video on because I just want to work on some other projects. So I figured why not just make a mid-year video recapping what I've played this year so far. And this is going to be a mixed bag of games. Some of these did come out this year. Actually, I think most of them did. But there are a couple classics weaved in here. So with that, I just want to ask an age-old question. Have you ever wanted to shoot Pikachu in the face with a shotgun? So one of the first new games I played this year when it came out was PalWorld in early access. This game blends various game types together, like some other games do on this list, but this one mostly focuses on monster catching, third-person shooting, base building, and it has an optional level of survival gameplay as well as multiplayer. Now, there was a lot of stink when this game first came out. There was a lot of talk in the air about, is this game just a pure ripoff of Pokemon? At best, are they copying assets? At worst, are they just completely stealing assets? And it seems like no companies actually did take any legal action so far. It is possible that maybe they're just waiting for the full release and building a case, but for now it seems like all the smoke around that has kind of settled, and either way, I thought this game was super fun to play when it first came out. With that, this game is by no means a full or complete game, definitely has a lot of flaws going on with it, but they are still actively working on this. I'm sure the giant blast of funds they got from this game being released in early access really helped their cause, and they have a new big summer update coming out with more pals, and I guess they're filling in some of the areas, but does that mean I'm going to be picking it up again? No, not really. If anything, I'd rather just wait for a full release at this point, if that even is ever going to happen. It was exciting just getting caught up in the fervor and everyone talking about it, and it was really in the zeitgeist for a while. And it clearly showed that a lot of gamers not just wanted, but they really craved some fresh takes on a Pokemon-style type game. This game is very front-heavy, however, and once you get towards the end game, that's when you really start seeing it slowly unraveling, and the gameplay loop does start to get pretty repetitive after a while. Killing bosses and building up breeding factories with friends was all pretty fun, but I think a lot of people really wanted that PvP content really soon, and it does seem like it's coming, but it seems like more of an arena style 3-on-3 with your shooty guy. And I think a lot more people just wanted that base rating component that isn't there yet. And even though overall I do think the gameplay was fun, and there's just a lot of technical flaws in this game, it kind of really likes to hide behind that idea of it being in early access, which is why there is a lot of poor quality of life features, and some things just look a little odd, and there's some glitches you still find. They are actively working on them, like I said, but there's still just a good amount there. But one thing I do really appreciate about this game is it gave you a ton of customization options when you were building your world, and that allows you to play the game as easy or as hard as you want, or as casually as you want, and I thought that was super fun and super cool and made the game really accessible. Was this game just a flash in the pan? Yeah, it probably was. And while killing cute creatures with shotguns and harvesting their bodies and creating breeding factories with them might not be for everyone, I still thought it was pretty fun overall and definitely gave a few laughs and a few chuckles at times. But while the game's fun, I do think it's overall a pretty flawed, hot mess. And yeah, it is fun for a few laughs, but I am curious to see where this game ends up in the long run, but it's nothing I have high hopes for or I'm waiting with bated breath over. So when it comes to the next game, do you remember in the mail when you would get a magazine and it would have a demo disc in it? And this disc would have a ton of different demos for a bunch of different games, and some of them would really leave an impression on you, but you never actually got around to owning the game or playing the game, but it was a game that kind of stuck in your mind for a little bit and you always wanted to go back and play it. No? You don't even know what a magazine is? Don't worry, the people with the receding hairlines and the back problems, they know what I'm talking about. So I've been playing Legend of the Dragoon on and off for a little bit now, and it's a very traditional turn-based JRPG that I played on a demo disc decades ago, specifically in a Sears actually, but the game always stuck in my mind. And while I think this game is a classic, probably more of a cult classic, it has proven to be extremely hard to get through, mostly because some of the older JRPG elements that it has, but also because it just has some what I feel are kind of odd design choices that really just slow the game down overall. Don't get me wrong, the presentation of this game is actually really amazing and kind of surprised me. I was really shocked at how cinematic just a lot of the basic attack animations and abilities are in the game. I mean, the moves are almost like little mini cutscenes that happen when you're in Dragoon mode, and the combat is actually pretty challenging at times, and you need to block certain moves, and when you block, you actually heal yourself. And the story and the characters are actually all pretty likable and enjoyable. I will say, I did notice that it seemed like there were some parallels to it in Final Fantasy in the elements of the storytelling, but that just could be because I'm Final Fantasy VII pilled. And while at first I did really appreciate the cinematic nature of everything in the basic combat, these elements over time just get really exhausting. Now, you can turn off the Dragoon transformations, but watching all the move animations and having to do all of the quick time events for even basic attacks can just really wear on your patience after a while. Some of this does really still look good for a PS1 game. Now, is this the best looking PS1 game? No, I wouldn't say it is, but it is pretty solid overall. And the story itself is decent so far. I haven't finished it yet. I'm probably 70-80% all the way through it, but it does feel like you end up taking random detours a lot in the story, like having to hunt a tiger or being randomly attacked by a ghost ship or having bandits steal all your stuff. And the fact that you only get to have one pre-selected attack per battle and you have very limited magic moves that you can only use when you're in Dragoon form just kind of feels limiting, and it is kind of annoying. I get that items are supposed to fill this magic ability space as you use those mostly to do magic attacks, but you have an item limit, and again, that's just kind of annoying and kind of a pain. That is a little bit of the times with the JRPGs. They did like to just have stuff in there that kind of made it challenging, but they were also still sort of working some of the kinks out, I feel. But overall, I do think this is a pretty good, solid game. I get why it has a very small diehard fan base to it, but the slow pace of this game is just really killing me, which is why I'm having a really hard time just pushing through it and finishing it. There's always been a lot of buzz in the air, mostly on like forums and within the small tight-knit community that it has about them wanting a remaster or a remake of the game. Honestly, I don't think it really needs it. I think it's fine just being a pillar of the past. I think it should always be available on a marketplace, but that's kind of a different conversation. But yeah, if you're a diehard fan of this game or you think it deserves a remake, let me know why.
Don't fuck with me! I have the power of God and anime on my side! Wait,
Staying in the lane of JRPGs, although this one is a little bit more action heavy, is the action RPG Sandland that came out this year that's based on the manga of the same name. This is a very story-driven game with elements of melee combat, sneak sections, but it is mostly about vehicle combat and vehicle customization, and it really kind of feels like a PG version of Mad Max, but with demons involved. And I actually really enjoyed this game personally, but it does not do anything overall special or mind-blowing, and I really wouldn't consider recommending this to most people. Now, I'm not familiar with this franchise at all, but I love the art style of the late Akira Toriyama, and I really just enjoyed the vehicles and the vehicle gameplay and the diversity of them. It reminded me a lot of when you played games like Borderlands or Halo, when you just mess around and have fun with the vehicles. There's a lot of that feel in this game, and getting to know the colorful cast of characters was really fun. I actually really enjoyed them, and I just liked how Beelzebub is this demon prince, and he sees compliments as actually insults, and the whole main reason he's doing these good deeds and trying to stop bad guys is because he just doesn't want anyone in the world to be more evil than him. That said, the melee combat of this game is really basic and I feel lacked complexity, and while you have some abilities, I just feel like they're a little too expensive to use as frequently as you would want to use them. And the sneak sections of this game were even worse, and they can kind of be cheesed through just by jumping around as you don't make any noise when jumping, and you just sneak up to people and give them a jump scare to sort of shuffle them out of your way. Honestly, if it wasn't for the quirky characters, the art style, and the charming story, I probably would have dropped this game about midway through. Thankfully, the second half of the game hits, changing the whole atmosphere to this region called Forestland, and that was pretty refreshing and invigorating. But with the vehicles, strafe and blast everything in the face with the tank always kind of remained the go-to strategy, and it was always kind of the top tier thing. It wasn't until later on in the game where you actually started getting more complex vehicles and better vehicle parts, and you kind of had to cycle through different vehicles in combat. But overall, this game was pretty easy and kind of lacked an overall challenge. This game really did feel like it was two story campaigns in one though, which I think helped it a lot, and the Dragon Ball parallels definitely really helped my enjoyment. Another thing that really helped my enjoyment is, much like Nemesis in Hades 2, General Rosetta makes me feel things, and I want to know what she can do with that big black tank of hers. But while I clean up this nosebleed, I just really overall enjoyed the art style of this game, the characters, and the vehicles were pretty fun overall. But I will say the biggest thing is that this game really seems like it's geared towards a younger audience. Just the way the characters speak, interact, and the simplicity of the gameplay just really gives that feeling. So because of that, it isn't really something I would recommend to quote-unquote adult gamers, unless you're really just like the Sandland manga, or you really want a simple, lighthearted JRPG that's more vehicle-based. It has a lot of elements that you would want and expect to see in an RPG, but it just doesn't do anything overall exceptional or amazing with these concepts. It doesn't do them terribly, but it doesn't do anything great with them either. The vehicles just really are the star of the show here. I think if you have a young child or a kid and this is on sale, it could be a good grab just to have it be their first action RPG, and could be a good family fun time just sitting down and playing through this game together. But if you aren't going for the angle of playing it with a family or with a kid, then it probably loses some points. Overall, it is a pretty well-made game, but it is kind of middle of the road. But I do think if the idea of a kid-friendly version of Mad Max sounds interesting to you, maybe it'd be worth checking out on a sale or something. Staying on the topic of vehicles though, I've also been playing Specific Drive on and off as well, and this is a very immersive game that's pretty unique overall, and I was kind of surprised by how much I actually enjoyed it. It has elements of a lot of different things. It's a driving game that has elements of survival, with a mechanic simulator, with extraction gameplay, and a dash of horror elements all mixed into it. It also has some roguelike elements in it as well, and I find the music and the atmosphere and the spooky vibe and the mysterious storytelling just all to be pretty engaging. All these elements are just blended together really well, as this game kind of does this weird thing where it goes from you having this chill, relaxed driving experience with some creepy anomalies coming at you, and then all of a sudden it just becomes this white-knuckle death race by the end of the run. I will say the gameplay loop of this game just kind of start to lose its luster after a while, and it can start really feeling like a big chore when you're trying to get a specific upgrade on your car and you're just struggling to get to that resource and find it. And upgrading your car is kind of the main purpose and the main way of progression, and it is pretty fun. There's also a thing where you have to fix odd quirks to your car, like your car's trunk will start opening when you honk the horn and stuff, and you do get some abilities of the car like quick turn and barriers, although I feel like they just weren't as impactful as I would have liked them to be. But the game is very, very car-centric, and not just from a gameplay perspective, but also from a plot perspective, as literally without it, you would not survive being in this strange zone. You're pretty much tied into it. But I do kind of wish that when you were outside of the car, there were just some like small puzzles or just something a little more to do when you're outside of the car. Although I get why they didn't do it. It would be really annoying if you're trying to solve a puzzle, then all of a sudden a hurricane or the zone starts breaking down around you. That would just be super aggravating. But ultimately, I never thought a game would make me care about a plywood station wagon as much as this game did. And it just does an amazing job of creating this great atmosphere that you can really get lost in. You really just kind of want to sit alone with this game for a while on a late evening and just chill out and play it. It really has this cozy feel to it, which is kind of odd to say with all the creepy little horror elements it has going on. Like I said, it does start feeling repetitive, but when it starts raining and your wipers are going and your radio's blasting and all of a sudden the zone starts breaking down and you're rushing to the extraction point, speeding, off-roading, avoiding electrical storms, explosive mannequins, giant pillars, and saw blades, this game just really comes together in a really unique and memorable way. It's definitely not for everyone, but probably one of the games I would recommend the most on this list so far, along with the next game actually. And this next game that I actually would recommend is Animal Well. I recently played it on a whim after seeing all the praise that it was getting, and I ended up really enjoying it and just getting to the first ending all in one sitting, which, to be fair, isn't that difficult to get to, but this game was way more fun and engaging than I was kind of expecting. It's a really classic Metroidvania style game mixed with a unique atmospheric art style, and it's just got fun puzzles that give you a lot of aha moments in it. And there's lots of platforming and tons of secrets to discover, and the items all being toys like slinkies and yo-yos and frisbees and bubble wands all just really add a unique charm to this game. Now, while this game is pretty much combatless other than some bosses, it is super puzzle heavy and super exploration heavy and very much focuses on platforms, but it is just a very chill and fun, relaxing experience overall, I felt. The end of the game does kind of ramp up a little bit, but getting to the first ending of the game is actually very easy, I feel. The puzzles themselves aren't that difficult, but the puzzles leading up to the second ending, which is you have to collect all the secret eggs to do, those things can be pretty well hidden and can lead to a lot of time spent sniffing around looking for them, and in most cases probably just using a list, which I feel kind of defeats the purpose of everything, but a lot of them I just don't really see a way you would kind of notice or find it out unless you've got a really keen eye. Now, to be honest, I have no real intentions of going for this second ending or even the true ending that's hidden away, so I looked those things up out of curiosity, and I'm really not sure how the developer planned on people figuring this thing out without some means of outside assistance. I mean, Some of the secrets are still even undiscovered right now, or rather it seems like there might be some undiscovered secrets. But yeah, some of those endgame puzzles are just crazy obscure, and it really is a deep well you can go down. I'm someone who definitely respects that, but I really just don't want to spend time and hours trying to solve crazy, obscure puzzles. And overall, it just is a really fun little indie game. And I give lots of props to the solo dev Billy Basso on this one. I mean, again, just to iterate, some of the crazy endgame puzzles I saw, I truly would just never figure out. But yeah, I did play this game on PS Plus, which means I sort of paid for it, but not really. If you want to go for an easy, light gameplay feel like I did, maybe wait till it's on sale. But if you're really into like solving deep crazy puzzles, maybe it's worth it. But this game is a much more slower, low-key game than something like Hollow Knight or Ori, so maybe it's not for everyone because it's lacking that actiony element that I know some people want. Some areas do require you to act with a little bit of quickness and avoid some scary things, but again, it doesn't seem terribly difficult overall. It's the puzzles that give you the difficulty, so it's more cerebral in that way. It can also be kind of patience testing, running around back and forth trying to figure out where and when you need to go somewheres, but I never found it to be overly egregious. But yeah, I would recommend this game. I think it's pretty fun. Just maybe if it went down in price a few dollars, it could be a little more justifiable. And the last and final game that I'm pretty sure nobody wants to hear me talk about is Balatro. It's a roguelike deck builder that is loosely based around poker, as you play a lot of poker hands, but you use jokers and planets and tarot cards and all kinds of crazy things to turn these little baby hands you got into giant hands and get those big, big numbers. If you're like me and love deck builders and you can easily get addicted to them and love just burning some time on them, this game really scratches that itch. I play it a lot just to kill time during lunch or in between work meetings or when I need a bit of a brain break, and honestly I keep going back and forth between this and Slay the Spire, which I have actually made a video on Slay the Spire. I would say check that out if you like card games. It's probably one of the best ones, and I kind of started playing that game a little bit more often once they announced the second one. But yeah, overall, Balatro's pretty basic, pretty fun game. Don't be intimidated because it's poker hands. You pick it up really quick, you learn it quick, and it's just fun, addicting. The retro style and the groovy background atmosphere just really help you zone out, and it's a really good brain burner and zone out tool, and it's really just chill to play and relax after a long day. So yeah, the price tag's pretty low. I'm sure it's going to be going on sale on and off all the time, but yeah, this is something that's definitely a good time killer, and I would recommend it if you're into roguelike deck buildings and burning lots of hours in your day getting mad that you got the wrong card. But yeah, these games have kind of been my background games for the first half of the year. As for games in the future that are coming out, I mean, Elden Ring DLC is on basically everyone's radar. Black Myth Wukong seems to be coming out in August. Really curious to see how that game ends out. And in October, we have Silent Hill 2, which seems interesting, kind of iffy on it. But for now, it doesn't seem like there's too much going on. I'm sure with the Summer Games Fest and a couple other events going on, we'll start filling out the rest of the year and see more of what's on the radar. But right now I'm actually looking more at my backlog to go through. Things like Dave the Diver, Dredge, or even some classics I've been thinking about. I was also gifted Octopath Traveler 2, so I think I might try to jump on that soonish. I do still want to make some Final Fantasy VII videos, like the character pieces and what I thought about each character specifically, although I just wanted to take a little bit of a breather from Final Fantasy VII for a little bit, although some of the new events around Sephiroth and the mobile game that happened have got my head spinning again a little bit. But yeah, if there are some other games you think I should check out, let me know. In the comments, let me know what you think. Am I a scumbag for enjoying PalWorld? Should Legend of the Dragoon get a remake or remaster? Is Animal Well actually a little bit overrated? Am I a hipster because I like Pacific Drive? And should I sell my car now and get a plywood station wagon? As usual, let me know why I'm wrong. As always, drive fast, take chances. Later, nerds.